gang, it is your founding father, Alex Cooper, with Call Her Daddy.
Nessa Barrett, welcome to Call Her Daddy.
Thank you.
So everyone probably knows you from TikTok. And I feel like sometimes when people pop up on the internet, there's this whole thing of like, wait, where did this person come from? Who are they? What are they about? Wait, like, what is their life story? So can you give us like your elevator pitch of like who you are?
So I'm from New Jersey, very small town. I've changed schools quite a bit. I've played soccer all my life. I've also been, doing music all my life because my dad was heavily into music. I always grew up with a studio in my house. And I ended up getting around 8 concussions. I had suffered from pretty bad brain injuries, and I had to completely stop sports altogether. And I was a pretty athletic person growing up, and soccer was my life. When I would get punished, my parents would ground me from going to practice. And I'd freak out. And so as soon as I stopped doing that, I had to find something else. And I started posting on social media, and then I'm here.
Here we are. When you became popular on TikTok, how did it feel to have so much attention so quickly?
Oh my God, I love it. I mean, I'm a Leo, so I love attention. And I felt like I never really got that growing up. And my entire life, that was kind of something that I chased, whether it was wanting friendships. I just wanted people to like me. And so the second that I, for once, wasn't just a loner kid, and people kind of were interested in me, it was a really good feeling.
How though did the kids at school treat you?
Everyone in my school, or most of my friends, had the app before I did. And they, I was told, to download it, and I made a video during school. And I just remember going to biology class and going to the bathroom to check my phone after. And I was like, whoa, these are famous people following me, one. And then my notifications were insane. I blew up during school. And everyone thought it was so cool at first. But then when it got to a certain degree, it was I was an outcast because of it. And I would walk into class, and they would take pictures of me from Google and make them all of the home screens on the computer. And then teachers would use my name and my salary as anecdotes for math problems. And it was, and it was a weird stuff. And having freshmen kids come up to me and ask for pictures. It's it was a lot. And I just remember I hate school. I hated school, and the only way I was going to college was for soccer. And when that was out of the picture, I was no, I'm going to college. And then when this happened, it was I begged and cried to just be homeschooled.
Would you confide in anyone about that?
It's hard to explain, because I'm the type of person that I get so embarrassed with what I go through that I don't really want to talk about it. And I try to just hold in everything and just deal with it myself. And I also feel no one gives a shit about me or what I'm going through. And that's just how I have a very big victim complex, and so I just would just take it and then cry about it alone. And I occasionally, I'd talk about it with my really close friends, but it was just really weird for me, because I the year before that too, I was I felt I was already became an outcast in my school. And in high school, I was the new kid as a freshman. No one's ever seen me before. I moved to a different town, and I left my previous school because I felt I didn't belong there. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of alone and outcasted. And mm-hmm. So I moved to a different high school, and I was everyone loves the new kids, at first. And then sophomore year is downhill.
you mentioned that you kind of had this like music studio in your house that your dad had put together, and he kind of had aspirations in the industry. Like, did he give you any advice of like what to do, how to handle moving forward, and like how to kind of craft your career?
Me and my dad have, we don't have like the best relationship. I'll always love him because he is my father, you know? And I like plan on working on our relationship in the future.
You made a big decision to move to LA at one point. Can you talk about when and why you decided to leave New Jersey and go to LA?
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic and everything was just like, everything was on lockdown. And at that point, I was going to the studio when I would go to LA, and I was visiting LA like quite often. Like there was a point where I would go to public school like Monday to Friday, and I had like senior option, which is where I had enough credits to just like leave at like 11. And I would leave at 11, go right to the airport, fly to LA, and then come back Sunday or Monday, and then do school the rest of the week. And I couldn't stay locked in my house in New Jersey, not doing anything that I, created already and started. And like school was just, online anyway. So I bought a plane ticket when I was 17 at 1 a.m. I had to leave at 4 a.m. And my parents knew that I was going to run away. So they took all of my suitcases, and I packed everything up in like old school bags and my old soccer bags and like duffel bags that I had, and got an Uber and left.
Were you scared?
Terrified. The worst was that I had a connecting flight, and so they had no idea. And I'm on my first flight, and I'm thinking, oh, I got away with it. I land on my connecting flight, and I phone blown up. Where am I? All this stuff. Like, they're tracking my flight. They know where I am. Like, cops are coming to get me. Like, they're not gonna. And I'm like, what the heck? So I'm just like playing like, I don't know. I was like trying to be like undercover, like at like the airport, like freaking out. My anxiety was so bad. And I just hopped on the next flight and I just kept going.
You're what, 17 years old? Mm-hmm. Who did you stay with? Did you have any friends in LA?
No, yeah. So I was visiting LA a lot before I ended up running away. And so I had a boyfriend at the time, and I stayed, at their house, and I just went straight there because that's where I was like staying before. And so like I knew like a few people there, and I had a place, and in my mindset at the time was like, anything other than being home is better for me. Yeah. It's like I would have done anything to get out of that situation.
And then you never went back. So you were dating Josh Richards, who is also a TikTok star. What was your relationship like?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because of social media, we developed a very serious relationship for it was too serious for how young we were. And, he was a part of Sway at the time too. And those boys, they were blowing up. That was their prime when we started dating. So them being 17, 18, blowing up, living in LA, in a house of their own. It's like a frat house of social media. And, it's hard to, resist some things. And I wouldn't say that this is the truth, but how I felt at the time was that a lot of the good parts of our relationship was simply for views and content and that stuff. And it got really hard for me to process because I'm, I fall for people like Heavy, and I get very attached. And so seeing things a certain way was kind of just I couldn't understand it.
Everything you see is not always what it actually is.
No, yeah, exactly. And I feel like, about 2 years ago, I made a drastic change with my persona online and how I let people see me because, the the very beginning of me being online, I was doing whatever I could to be the person that everyone wanted me to be and to be liked. And I faked almost everything. Like, I wasn't being real. I wasn't myself. It was just, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, give us an example of like what you would be faking.
I mean, for one, like my style and, you know, my attitude. I have struggled with mental health so much, and I am a pretty sad person, but I in the beginning, like, I developed such a bubbly character that was almost like, you know, like, like, I don't care, like, I'm just happy and like giggly, and like it was just not me. And then over time, I just like kind of like allowed myself to be like that person that like everyone could like make fun of.
How did you try to maintain any type of autonomy over who you really were versus what was going on the internet that you were posting?
Yeah, I mean, like, I just struggled a lot with my identity at that point. And I feel like the second I actually started, you know, making music and like writing my music, it really helped me like understand how, like, who I was, you know. And that's when I just stopped caring. Like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do, and I'm gonna be myself, because I mean, it's like the best thing to do at this point.
Last year, all of the drama unfolded between what seemed like two TikTok couples. There was you and Josh and Mads and Jaden, and you were all friends until you weren't, and it kind of all blew up.
Yeah.
What happened?
See, this is just like a very like sticky situation to talk about, because I feel like there's like multiple sides to every story, and it was just, you know, we were all living in a house together, and I felt like separately we each were going through problems in our relationship, and me and Jaden were really good friends, and we started doing la-di-di, and that's when like everyone's like, oh my god, like they started like falling for each other when they did la-di-di, and I'm like, no, you know, like that, it wasn't like that's not like what happened. It was like after like the song was already made and everything was already done. It was like after but yeah, like we were struggling in our relationships separately, and there was a lot of tension in the house too, because you know, certain people didn't really get along. And Josh at the time, like before we broke up, he was just so busy with work, and I was like heavily like starting my music career, and so there was just a point we decided to break up too, because I was struggling a lot mentally, and I've just realized that like, hey, like we started dating when we were really young, and we're both just not the same people as when we started, and I just felt like we had a lot of different interests, you know. And it got to a point where sometimes you just realize that you're more comfortable than, you know, in love at the moment. I don't know, we broke up, and then stuff just started happening, and it wasn't like anything like sneaky, really. I felt like I just let my heart kind of just like take control, and I knew that it was like really bad timing and like not the best situation, and I just know how it looked, and it should have looked that way, because I did make a poor decision, but like I don't regret anything. And also too, like, which I don't want to use any, like, it's I don't want to sound like I'm like making up excuses for myself, but like with my like mental health stuff, and with BPD, there's a thing called favorite person, and like we can get into that like more in depth, but your brain basically like unwillingly attaches itself to someone, and when that happens, like that's all you can think about, and you'll do anything to make that person happy, and they become your life and identity at that point. And it turns romantic, because it's so hard to identify the difference between that. You know, when you're so in love with someone, it's like they become your favorite person, but with BPD it's like different. And I think because me and Jaden were spending so much time with each other, with music and all that stuff, and we were really close friends, and I, wasn't with Josh anymore, and even when I was, it's like he was gone most of the time. We didn't really spend that much time together. My brain attached itself to Jaden in that way, and so that's when I was like, I'd do anything at that moment to make it work. But then, social media got into play, and then the whole drama started, and it created it something that it probably wasn't going to be. Like, we started dating it became serious and an actual thing after everything broke out on the internet, because we felt like we had to. The night that everything kind of broke out was the day that we performed on Ellen. It was like a headline that we announced that we're dating, we made it official. And I was like, what the heck? I'm not gonna lie, I was being very selfish, and I obviously felt a certain way, but I feel like everyone can say at certain points that what people say online is not gonna affect them. And even if you don't want it to and you don't let it subconsciously, it's gonna be in your head, and it's gonna do something. And I'm just very thankful that I got to deal with that situation with someone by my side, because I've dealt with a scandal similar to that, and I was completely alone dealing with it, so it was different. And I felt like a blessing and a curse to go through it with Jaden. But it was really hard. I just didn't want to really talk about the situation, because I was, one, kind of embarrassed, but two, also very angry at the way that everything played out. And it was just something that made me really upset, because at the time I just thought that I was doing something that would make me happy, but then I had the whole world, calling me a slut and telling me that I'm a backstabbing bitch and all this stuff, and I'm a homie hopper and a home wrecker and all this stuff. And it was just very frustrating to me, because I was there's so many aspects of the entire thing that no one knows about.
I think it also helps clarify, again, like we said, everyone has different perspectives, and I appreciate you just kind of speaking from your perspective, because I think, again, a lot of people are just going to respect how gracefully and respectfully you handled the situation, and you continue to handle the situation.
I feel bad more than anything, and I've realized that I just was really selfish.
Again, I appreciate you just being honest and taking ownership, and you and Jaden kind of just become in this huge relationship that becomes larger than life, which had already happened to you once with Josh, of everyone wanting to watch everything you're doing on the internet, and then it ends. What happened? We honestly got to experience such amazing things together. I mean, I performed at Lollapalooza with him, and we did everything. And I was I was on tour with him for a little bit when he was on tour with MGK, and again, I wouldn't regret it. And we've had a lot of great moments that I would cherish forever. And it was just, everyone already had something to say about it and us. And as much as, we wanted to not let things affect us, it did. And during our relationship too, we both really struggled mentally. And we also were kind of because of how it started, I felt we always felt we were outcasted from everyone, and it was just kind of an us against the world type thing. And that got hard when we both were struggling so much personally, and there was just a lot of things that I felt we both needed to work on before jumping into another relationship, which we did way too fast. Yeah. And it got really tricky, and our mental health just got the both of us. And we just had a lot of growing to do. And I felt there was also the pressure of us, all of the drama, we felt we had to
make it last.
There is speculation that he cheated. Is that true?